Just real quickly, how many of you came to any of the training sessions or did a dry run? Most of you. Okay, that's great. So you kind of know how this is going to go. I want to start because we do live stream, and I know all of your moms and dads and cousins are watching. I will tell you that tomorrow afternoon, if you make the finals, we will be live streaming, and that's where the vote for the People's Choice Award comes in. Danielle, how long do we leave the vote open? 15 minutes? About 15 minutes. It's at the end of the competition tomorrow. So if you make it to the finals, you will want to tell your faculty, your fellow students, your families that they should watch everybody, and then I'm sure they're going to agree that you are the best, and they're going to vote for you in the People's Choice Award. It's a $500 prize. Last year we had several hundred votes registered, so it's pretty competitive. This morning we did Heat 1, and we had 5 people that were moved into the finals for tomorrow, and we'll talk more about that at the end after you guys are all done. So we just take some deep breaths. Once we get going, it moves pretty quickly, okay? So we're going to go online here, and I'm going to walk you through just a couple of rules, introduce our judges, and then answer any questions you have, and we'll get started, okay? Great. Oh, and by the way, that's me, John Dalton, Assistant Dean for the Graduate School. Thanks, everybody. So we absolutely love our graduate coordinators, and I ask this every time. How many of you know who your graduate coordinator is? Look at you, gold stars. Those of you who didn't raise your hand, you probably don't want these folks to see you because they may not appreciate that, but your graduate coordinator is a very, very important person in your program and in your department. If you don't know them, get to know them. They belong, and they created an organization called the Graduate Coordinator Network, and they help each other out. They do professional development. They also take care of a lot of your problems through that network. They are sponsoring the competition, and we will go through this. But first of all, I want to say thank you to our representatives who are also our judges for the Graduate Coordinator Network. I thought I had a slide up here with some prize money on it. It's probably later. So they are providing $1,000 for the first place, $750 for the second place, and $500 for the People's Choice. They will also be purchasing airfare and hotel for the winner to go to the beautiful Birmingham, Alabama in March to represent the university in the regional competition, where you can also win a lot of money. Okay? We get to send one person. So thank you, Graduate Coordinator Network. This is an advertisement about the Graduate Research Showcase. I'll put that up at the end too so you can see it. So sponsored by the libraries, just another opportunity for you to practice your skills, okay? Okay, let me go through this. Anybody competed before? Anybody done this before? Oh, yeah, you know how this works. Okay, great. So we're just going to go through very quickly I'm not going to read the rules to you because I'm sure you've all done your homework and you've read them, but let me go through a couple of things. One is talking about, we got your slides up there, there has to be spoken word, no singing, no rapping, no musical instruments, no visual aids except for your slide. The time is absolutely crucial. We have our esteemed colleagues in the back, Holly and David. You see the really big bright clock, 3 minutes. If you hear the bell, that's bad, okay? Don't want to hear the bell. The bell means, first of all, it can mean 2 things. One thing is if the clock malfunctions after you start, you will hear the bell, stop talking. We will reset the clock. You'll restart your presentation, okay? If you hear the bell at the end of it, once that thing reaches zeros across, you will hear the bell. You never want to hear the bell. It is a disqualifying sound. It'll be up to the judges. My advice to you, watch the clock in your last few seconds, stop talking. Okay, you can just say thank you and end it. No matter if you've got, 3 paragraphs left or whatever you have, stop talking, okay? That way at least you're not disqualified. On your time, the timekeepers will announce how many seconds are left on the clock, okay? We will write that down. Judges will make a note of it. You don't want to really have more than 20 seconds or so left on the clock. So if you see that you're going to have that much left, keep it going a little bit. We love last time nobody went over their 3 minutes, and I think the closest was 2 seconds. Yeah, so really close. Made me nervous, but they did good. All right, any questions about the rules? We will start when you start. So when you come out to the platform, wait till I tell you to go, and then you will come out to the platform when you make a big gesture or you speak, clock starts, okay? And that's how we take off. So any questions about the rules? Nope? Okay, great. Okay, so judging criteria. Hopefully you've read this. We just want you to be clear and concise. We want you to be excited, get people excited about your research, and at the end of it, we really want to know more. And when the judges go into their deliberation room, what they're looking for is, this morning, they were basically saying, that was really interesting. I actually did want to know more. That's what you want. You want that response out of your judges, okay? At this point, this is kind of coming a little late, but we hope you're engaging and you've worked on your communication skills. If you win, we have until March to practice with you, so we will get you really good at doing this, okay? Okay, that's just to get you excited. They're not really big checks or anything. I think we actually just deposit the money in your account. Do you guys have really big checks you're giving out? Oh, they actually do have a really big check. Do you have the winner check? Okay. Somebody's getting a big check. In more ways than one, so that's going to be very exciting. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about our judges. I do want to take a minute and just have them say hi, and here's their name, but if you would just introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are. Fair is fair. They get to hear you talk.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisbeth Damar. I'm the graduate coordinator in Communication Sciences and Disorders in the Moody College, and I'm also the chair this year of the Graduate Coordinator Network that helps sponsor this. So I'm very excited to be here. It's my second time doing this, and I really love hearing, about the research and like Mr. Dalton said, to just get excited in 3 minutes and learn about it. So good luck.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Olga Kutsuridi. I'm the program coordinator over in the Texas Career Engagement Center, and I work directly with graduate students, help you guys get careers off the ground after you're finished with your work here at UT. I'm brand new to this office, and I was a graduate coordinator in American Studies and Liberal Arts, and I just looked at everyone's kind of where you all are coming from, and I'm really happy to see the diversity in everyone's background here. So good luck.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Demchuck. I'm the Assistant Director for Graduate Academic Services at the School of Nursing. This is my second time to judge, so I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also a doctorate student. I'm doing my EDD in the School of Education, so I just started this summer. So I'm extremely interested in hearing what you're doing because I'm learning a lot about writing, so I'm going to be a tough one. No, I'm kidding. Good luck. I think it's going to be all. You guys are going to do amazing, so I'm looking forward to it as well. Good luck to you.
Let's give our judges a hand, so thank you. I should say their decision is final. I don't think they can easily be persuaded, but we will rely on them today. So let me see what else I got here. Okay, so we're going to start. And once we get started, again, it goes pretty quickly. So here's how it's going to work. I am going to put up the slide with your name on it. That's the gentleman right here. As soon as you see your name come up, you come up here, and I'm going to put a microphone on you like this. It's going to go around your neck, and we'll show you with Javier in just a second. And I I will give you the cue because between each of you, the judges have to make notes. So as soon as you get the microphone on, don't start talking. Wait till I tell you to go, okay? The judges will give me a cue that they're ready. This is the cue. I'll look at all three of them, make sure they're ready, and then the floor is yours, okay? As soon as you start talking, your slide comes up. As soon as you stop talking, your slide comes down. Okay, and the judges will have your slides in the deliberation room so they can go back through and take a closer look if they want to. Okay, any questions? All right, Javier, come on up.
Thank you.
Judges are ready because they have nothing to write.
And you're standing there?
I'm going to move, and you go.
While standing outside in the cold in front of Catholic Charities, I wondered to myself, did he ever think this is how his American dream would end, being out of status? I'm here today to talk to you about a dream that I once had when I was a child, and I wanted to be like Michael Jordan. O como los niños de hoy, que quieren ser como LeBron James, o quieren ser como Stephen Curry. The same dream that I argue under the auspices of the United States Student Exchange Visitors Program, F-Student Visa, facilitates the unregulated migration, trafficking, and exploitation of international black youth to play U.S. high school basketball. There are nearly 50,000 F-1 student visas currently studying in U.S. high schools. The vast majority of these students hail from the continent of Asia. However, as I was scrolling through the internet discovering more basketball trafficking cases, I noticed that the majority of the victims were black and brown youth from developing nations, from Latin America and West Africa. It was at that point I wanted to know, what was it about their race, their nation of origin, and their English language proficiencies that made them more vulnerable to be victimized by these practices? I have been engaging in an ethnographic study of a Panamanian youth who left his country en busca de su sueño americano, but found himself in an immigration nightmare here in the United States, out of status, without anywhere to go. However, I've been searching through my research, I've been looking to engage in finding ways to mitigate these problems, to be able to give youth an opportunity to be and live how they want to. Because in the United States, F-1 student visa holders are allowed to study in private schools. And public schools have actually prohibited the use of F-1 student visas for athletic purposes because of their ripeness for abuse, to be abused by coaches, recruiters, and booster club members. Basketball is growing globally. The NBA has more international players than it ever has before. Youth want to play basketball and they're thinking of the United States. However, international black youth, unlike their African American counterparts, when things do not work out in the basketball world, which they often do not, they cannot easily go back home because home might be further away than the United States. And if they're anything like the young man who lived with me for over a year, who was not able to come back into the United States, the immigration policies of this country have not been fair to them or just. And it is under my duty to do something about this. Thank you for your time. Uh-oh.
Hi. I should also say if you need to leave, you don't have to stay for the whole competition once you've presented. We will be announcing the finalists moving on tomorrow at about, let's see, 2, we finish at 2. Did Mr. Thomas come? Yeah, Yeah, we're missing one though, right? Okay, so we'll finish. So we'll probably be announcing the finalist, I'm going to say around 3 o'clock or so. If you want to come back around 3 o'clock if you have to leave. If you need to leave and you're not going to be here, you can give Danielle your information and we'll send it to you, okay? Judges, are we ready? Thumbs up.
One day in the first century, 150 years after the Roman Empire had conquered Greece, a 500-year-old temple was systematically dismantled, transported 7 miles from the country into the heart of Athens, and placed directly opposite a Roman-style theater, which is in yellow behind me. My research investigates how cultural memories and identities are produced, protected, and destroyed in these monuments. The space where the temple was moved to is known as the Athenian Agora. When Athens was a free city-state, its citizens would gather there to vote for their leaders. Most scholars argue that the Romans built this theater based off of a temple in Rome to disrupt this political space and assert their new dominance. They then moved the temple from the country to symbolize that they were taking on the legacy of Greece. I think that Romans may well have interpreted the space this way, but I think the Athenians thought very differently. And I think that the Athenians were the ones who moved this temple. If we return to the countryside, in its original location, the temple had been dedicated to Athena. And once a year, Athenians from both the country and the city would gather together to celebrate their common identity. After this temple was ripped from its home and transported to the city, a Roman wall was built through the sanctuary, and people in the country could no longer look to their goddess and see themselves as Athenians, but only look to the wall and see themselves as Roman subjects. In the city, where Athenians had power and resources to represent themselves as they saw fit, they rededicated the temple to the god Ares, who in Athens was the god of law and order. Placing it across from the Roman theater sent a message that despite Roman political domination, they were still Athenians and the inheritors of Greek culture and history. I have asked the questions: whose history gets to be remembered and who gets to decide? If these sound like familiar questions, they should. My research models how looking at monuments and landscapes from both a bird's eye view and the perspective of people on the ground can recover these otherwise hidden identities and memories. Thank you.
We need some game show music. Does anybody want to hum anything from a game show while we're waiting? That'd be great. At this point, we'll take it. Okay, judges, give me your thumbs up when you're ready to go. Okay, the stage is yours.
Dallas police officer Amber Geiger was sentenced to 10 years for the murder of Botham Jean, a black man. In the moments following her sentencing, Geiger is hugged by Botham's brother Brant Jean and comforted by the presiding judge, a black woman, who offers Geiger her own personal Bible. On Twitter, these events sparked outrage, which then catalyzed pushback. The central concern at the heart of this conflict is why black people who are consistently targeted by state violence are expected to meet such treatment with restraint and compassion for those that harm us. The consideration shown to Geiger would have never been shown had the roles been reversed. This courtroom coddling of a convicted felon is a strange symptom of the philosophies of the colonizer, philosophies that are contained within the Bible the judge offered Geiger, a Bible which has historically been a tool of social control. But haven't we, as colonized people, developed our own opposing philosophies? And if so, where can they be found? Let's move to Atlanta. This city is known to be the nation's black mecca, yet poverty and violence still run rampant in a space where wealth is highly concentrated. And for black folks, attaining financial security or getting on primarily consists of participating in the drug trade and hoping you live long enough to make a hit record. Keep your head on a swivel, trouble looking around the corner, run up on you any minute, you'll be gone. I know people dead out of desperation. R.I.P. my brother Alan, man, I wish you would have stayed at home. Learn to make the best out of bad situations. No complaining, no more zen, I'll leave the medicine alone. Dog, I swear to God that I'm changing for the better. F whoever got the nerve to try and tell me that I'm wrong. These are the lyrics to Swivel, a track from Atlanta rap duo Earth Gang. I analyze these lyrics as a cultural studies scholar, and this is possible only because I am a lifelong fan of Southern rap. And from first listen, I noticed that what was being articulated here is a philosophy of, for, and by colonized people. The first two lines are an acknowledgement that to be a colonized individual is to be expendable in the eyes of society. Because trouble is inescapable, the value of black life is diminished. Any minute, you'll be gone. But there is a shift in the second half of the hook. To make the best out of a bad situation means to harness the wisdom honed by our impoverished and dehumanized ancestors, allowing for a sense of autonomy and self-preservation to develop. Thus, the last line of the hook is a complete rejection of the philosophies of the colonizer. Understanding that the philosophies that allow us to thrive and live are located within our cultural contributions, my work outlines philosophies of, for, and by colonized people so that we may begin to heal the wounds of our nation, the ones that out of which we betray each other and ourselves. Thank you.
Hey, judges, are we ready? Great.
We are all afraid of getting cancer because cancer is so hard to cure. Cancer treatment is complicated and has terrible side effects. Side effects occur when cancer treatments damage healthy cells. This raises the question, can we selectively target cancer cells? We need a decision-making tool that can say yes, we find the cancer cell, and say no, we find the healthy cell. There are many molecular clues allow us to differentiate cancer cells and healthy cells. Since these clues are at the nanoscale level, we need devices at the nanoscale level. These requirements bring DNA to our attention. There are a couple of reasons why we would like to use DNA. First of all, everyone has DNA. DNA is well compatible and is at the nanoscale level. Secondly, DNA is commercially available, and smart drugs made of DNA could be affordable in the future. Finally, we understand a lot about the interaction between DNA molecules, so we can manipulate them. Researchers have built various molecular devices using DNA, such as DNA computers that can perform square root computations, or DNA robots that can move along a pre-built track and make decisions to sort cargoes. This all looks very fascinating, but there is one big problem among all these smart DNA systems. They make errors. We don't want our molecular devices to make the wrong decisions. To solve this problem, my thesis topic is about developing a systematic method to eliminate errors in a variety of DNA systems. Typically, an error occurs when two DNA molecules that are not supposed to interact collide with each other. In the system that I built, I added an extra component. The extra component works like a lawyer and a jury in a trial. Every time two molecules falsely interact, the lawyer sends the evidence to the jury. The jury does not decide on guilt based on only one piece of evidence. It decides on guilt only after multiple pieces of evidence are presented. Under the monitor of a jury, an error in my system requires multiple layers of false interactions. This reduces the probability of error. Using this design principle, we can reduce error to any desirable level. How do we do that? Just ask the lawyer to present more and more evidence. This design principle can be applied to many different DNA systems. In the future, when we have a smart DNA drug that can selectively target cancer cells, it will make less errors. Thank you.
Ouch. The Fort Worth Basin in North Texas has experienced a roughly exponential increase in the number of earthquakes since 2008. It's primarily attributed to wastewater injections into the Eilenberg Formation, located just above the earthquake active zone. Eilenberg Formation, it is a carbonate formation, and that is one of the geological layers that formed 560 million years ago. To better understand the Fort Worth Basin includes one of the largest metropolitan area in the southern United States, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And public studies have shown that the increase in the number of earthquakes is related to oil and gas activities. To better understand the earthquake activity and associated risks, the state of Texas has now provided 3 iterations of funding to the Center of Integrated Seismicity Research with a combined petroleum industry partnership at the University of Texas at Austin to both study the earthquake activities, understand the causal factors,
and develop applications for mitigation. The traditional modeling approach of seismicity has some disadvantage because it requires a lot of physical parameters, and in our complex subsurface modeling, there's huge uncertainty related to those physical parameters. The limitation of the physical modeling approach promote us to use alternative methods. Our study we applied a statistical approach on a same multivariate dataset to make straightforward statistical comparison between the earthquake activity, the regional subsurface pressure, and injection activities. What we found is the spatial location and the timing of the seismicity coincides with the increase in the regional subsurface pressure. This not only shows the correlation, but the causation. The increase in injected volume caused the increase in subsurface pore pressure, which increase the probability of structural failure and seismicity with time. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're going to change focus from some of these serious topics for a second. And I'm going to ask you to think back to when you were a child. When you were a child in a museum and you saw dinosaur bones, you saw statues of early humans. Did you ever wonder, what happens after I go away? What happens after I go away? What happens after I go home? What happens when the lights go out, right? And a 2006 movie franchise, Night at the Museum, decided to play up on that idea. And in that movie, there's a hapless security guard who's new who discovers there's a curse that when everybody goes home, the animals and the statues and the exhibits just come to life and wreak havoc in this museum space. Well, museums need to raise funds, and they recognize that this is an opportunity for them to also make money with. And they started hosting these overnight events, definitely more frequently since 2006 when these movies came out. And these are happening in places you might not expect. Obviously museums, zoos, you want to sleep with some hippos, aquariums, and even retired naval battleships. You can go sleep on the USS Lexington with 15 of your friends. One such site that I work with closely is the Whitty Museum in San Antonio. And their event is called Midnight at the Museum, and this is their particular logo on the right. And for me, I like the parallels that they draw in this logo with the dinosaur bones, with the cowboy, keeping it a little Texas. And I'm working with them closely for my dissertation research in which I am primarily looking at what are the unique characteristics of learning in this space. And what I found is that no one's actually looking at this. These are new events. These are new spaces. And so I'm getting to do uncharted territory. But what that means is that a lot of them, what I'm doing is very exploratory. And so my first research question, like I said, is what are these unique characteristics? And how I answered these is very qualitatively. First, I did staff interviews. I talked to the people who did these events. I talked to families who go to these events. But my primary form of data of what's happening in the moment is coming from children who are wearing GoPros like I'm wearing this necklace, or also strapped on their heads. First-person perspective videos. And what we're finding is that there are generally two types of events, scripted and co-authored. And these co-authored events are tied to money. The more money you can spend, the better the experience. And we're just now starting to make those connections, or I'm just now starting to make those connections. And I don't know where this is going to lead, but it feels like an equity issue. It feels like if you can afford to pay more and co-create an event with a Mr. Softy truck and a pizza truck and all these things, does that make you learn more? Does that enhance your learning? Thank you.
So suppose you are up to bat playing baseball, and you see a fastball go straight down the middle. And you wind up ready to swing, and a strange thing happens. You miss. What happened? The pitcher threw a changeup, made you think it was going to go 90 miles an hour, but it went 80. And what my research is related to is if you suppose that the earthquake is itself a pitcher. Imagine that the earthquake is a pitcher, and that I'm the batter. My role is to figure out how strong the earthquake was and where it was located, where it originated from, or its so-called epicenter. So the way that you do this is you place tons of sensors around, say, Northern California, which is a high-risk earthquake area, and say an earthquake hits San Francisco right now. And 10 seconds later, my measurements tell me that the surface is shaking at all of these receiver locations. So I guess maybe the epicenter is in the South Bay, for example, a little bit outside of San Francisco. And I guess that it's, say, magnitude 7. I plug in those parameters and I figure out with the computer model how strong the ground shaking should be at all of the measurement locations that I have. If it's exactly the same as the measurements, then I'm done. I'm done. I've perfectly guessed the epicenter and how strong it was. But the question is, if I'm a little bit off, if there's a little bit of error, I don't hit the baseball perfectly, how should I look at improving my technique? Because if I was a baseball batter and I noticed that my bat was a little high, then maybe I should say swing a little bit lower. But it could be that my timing is off, that I got to change up. So this graphic here on the right talks about this idea, basically, that if the ground shaking you think is higher being more ground shaking, is that perfect triangular blue one at the top, then all of these different solutions could be the correct solution. There's philosophical arguments as to why each one of those could be a solution. The question is, which one's the correct one? And if I'm a little bit off at all of these locations, how do I guess which one is the correct one? So the graphic on the left here shows what I propose, is a graphic motivating what I propose, which is one way of measuring how I should inform my next guess of where the epicenter should be is to look at the area of these two triangles. It's related to a formula of those two triangles, which will give you an area of 1. But as you see, they have the exact same form. So what I would propose is that you just shift them and optimize recording that metric. Thank you.
"3D printing has received a lot of media attention in recent years, advertised as a disruptive technology that will revolutionize modern manufacturing. But despite the hype, one thing is clear about 3D printing today. While it is extremely useful in making plastic models and prototypes, it has failed to deliver on the grand promises shown in the media. So researchers, along with industrial partners primarily in the aerospace and automotive sectors, are seeking to change that. In the field, 3D printing is called additive manufacturing, to represent a growing desire in moving away from making cheap plastic models and toward being a viable manufacturing option for production-ready parts. So what is stopping us from achieving that goal? Well, there are a variety of additive manufacturing processes, but in general, parts are built from the bottom up as a stack of many individual layers. Each slice of the part must be melted and resolidified before the next slice can be laid down on top of it. The layers in additive manufacturing lead to two main issues that are preventing it from gaining widespread adoption in industry. The process is time-consuming, and the parts are weak. This is where microwaves enter the picture. The microwave oven was invented to drastically reduce the cooking time for food compared to a traditional oven. Microwaves work by rapidly vibrating the water molecules inside your food using electromagnetic radiation. This rapid vibration creates heat, and since the microwaves penetrate to the center of your food, it can be cooked all at once, whereas a traditional oven cooks from the outside in. So how can we use this to our advantage in 3D printing? Well, most plastics do not heat up in a microwave. You've experienced this if you've ever microwaved your leftovers in Tupperware. The food gets hot, but the container doesn't. However, we can combine plastics with other materials that do heat up in a microwave, just like the water does in your food. By carefully placing these other materials into a plastic powder, we can precisely control which regions will heat up and melt together to make a part. And so my project is doing exactly that through a new process that I'm calling radio frequency additive manufacturing, or RFAM for short. As the name implies, RFAM uses radio frequency radiation, which works just like microwaves but at a slightly different frequency. So in the same way that food can be cooked much quicker in a microwave than in an oven, RFAM can create parts much faster than traditional 3D printing methods. RF allows us to melt the entire part at one time instead of melting individual layers. So not only is the process faster, but the parts have the potential to be stronger as well. Early studies have demonstrated that it is possible to make parts using this method, but there's still a long way to go. I fully believe that additive manufacturing will reshape how we make parts in the future, and RFAM is bringing us one step closer toward that goal. Thank you.
We all know a bit about gypsies. Their women are seductive fortune tellers, and their men are exuberant violin and guitar players. Are they thieves, beggars, and kidnappers? Whatever it is that you've heard about them, it's probably wrong, starting with the word gypsy, which is based on the mistaken assumption that they're Egyptian. They're not. They're a diasporic population that was taken as war prisoners from India 1,000 years ago. They prefer to call themselves the Romani people, to distance themselves from the romanticized image we've created around them. My research centers on how gypsy female stereotypes that were taken from Iberian literature were replicated in Mexican cinema. From 1940 to 1970, Romanis were less than 0.01% of Mexican population, yet there were 30 films about them. This is an average of 1 per year. The stories are pretty similar. A proud Mexican man is destroyed by a seductive gypsy woman. For example, in Sueños de Oro from 1953, the protagonist, Carmen, runs away from her Carvin to avoid arranged marriage. She meets a show businessman who offers her a contract to perform as a singer. He falls in love with her and leaves everything behind. But when Carmen becomes famous, she rejects him. What is the story trying to tell us? In 1950s Mexico, this was clearly a warning. Men are ruined when they stray from traditional women and seek out foreign delights. Mexican cinema at the time was widely accessible across classes. It was used by the state to entertain, educate, and indoctrinate the masses. These films reinforced fear of the stranger. These stories of migratory women seducing sedentary men were common in Brazilian and Cuban films, which used gypsy characters, but more often African ones. In light of population growth, global warming, and strife, we will continue to deal with diasporic populations. My research will explore how visual media shapes our views of the stranger. Exposing these stereotypes will help us understand how these stereotypes generate fear. Hopefully this understanding will lead to a more inclusive world. And along the way, we might learn to stop calling Romanis gypsies.
The universe. It's beautiful and enigmatic and charismatic. And my job as a student of physics is to understand it. It was created 14 billion years ago by a massive explosion called the Big Bang. And right after that Big Bang, the universe was filled with many, many particles that shaped the fortune of our universe and created in a shape that as we know it today. As a student of particle physics, I want to understand and discover those particles, and I want to understand that how those particles created the universe in the shape that as I know it today. But there is a trick to that. We really do not find those particles lying around the corner because those particles existed many, many years ago, roughly speaking, 14 billion years ago. So what we do to recreate those particles is we build the largest machine on Earth, the Large Hadron Collider, a 27-kilometer long tunnel that is situated underground at the border of Switzerland and France that houses 4 gigantic experiments. And I work with one of them called the Atlas. Inside the Atlas detector, we collide very, very high energy particles at a rate of 40 million collisions per second. And the picture you can see here is the result of one such collision. And all the lines that are coming out of the centers are the particles that are created in that massive collision between energetic particles. And this gives an amount of data to come through. We come through all that data and we select out some selected events that we look into them. We look into the particles that come out of it and we try to figure out, are these events the same that we expect them to be? But there is another catch to that. How do you know what we expect from them? We know something about the universe and we know how the universe would look like if some certain theories are correct. We create mathematical models of them, we create simulations out of them, and those simulations are our benchmark to compare our data with. When we compare our data with the physics that we know about and find good match between them, we can say, well, we haven't found something new yet. But if we find something unusual in our data that looks like something not coming out of the physics that we know about, that's a eureka. We have found something new, something exciting that will be a tiny missing piece in the puzzle of the universe. And I can tell you that if I find one such particle out of my research, I'm going to look into its eyes and going to ask it the question, how are you doing? Thank you. Can you just help me with it? Oh, thank you.
If you don't stop, I'm going to send you to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, can you take him? Can you just deal with him right now? Mr. Smith is an African-American teacher who was frustrated by the fact that he was solely seen as the on-site disciplinarian for black boys in his school. As a former teacher who was similarly treated in this way, I wanted to know why so many black male teachers were enclosed in this perception of being seen as these harsh disciplinarians rather than the complex intellectuals that I knew them to be. What I found out is that black male teachers remain entangled in pathological research from the 1960s. This racialized and misleading research has reported that families with absent black fathers produce bad black boys that become problems in schools that need to be dealt with. As a result, society has become conditioned to see that the sole purpose, the only reason for black male teachers is in their ability to deal with those black boys. So why is this a problem? First, it reduces black male teachers to an extension of the carceral state in which their sole purpose is to serve as the disciplinarians of black boys. Second, it shifts the responsibility of socio-historical and systematic school dysfunction onto the shoulders of black male teachers alone. And thirdly, it eviscerates the ability to think of black male teachers as critical intellectuals and serious professionals within the realm of education. This is where my research comes in. My dissertation seeks to reconstruct the narrative of black male teachers by disentangling them from these pathological notions to recognize and humanize the complexity of these individuals. So let's return to Mr. Smith. When I interviewed Mr. Smith about why he wanted to become a teacher, why he wanted to work with black boys, he didn't say anything at all about wanting to be a disciplinarian or describing them as behavior problems. What he talked about was how excited Mr. Smith was to come downstairs and sit and watch the History Channel with his father, who was a former Marine. He talked about going on family vacations to Jamestown and Williamsburg, Virginia. He talked about the way that his pastor, who was also a teacher, weaved in African American history throughout his sermons on Sunday afternoons. This is the purpose of my research. It seeks to do something to the construction of black male narratives that few research has ever done over the course of sociological and educational research. Humanize. Thank you.
Thanks, and let me get that microphone back from you. Okay, that wasn't so bad, was it? You're all done. All right, so we are going to go into deliberations, and I said 3 o'clock, but that may be a little ambitious because that's only 20 minutes away. So let's say 3:15. We will announce the finalists who will be moving to tomorrow afternoon's competition. And if you cannot come back at 3:15, then give your contact information to Danielle before you leave, and we'll reach out to you. Feedback from the judges, we're going to ask them just to email it to us, and then we'll provide it back to you if there's feedback for you, okay? So hope to see you again at 3:15. Hey, let's give yourselves a big round of applause. That was great. Okay, thank you all.